Hello, everyone. Going to invite my guests. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sex in the City series on Instagram. I am Erickaa, and my focus is sexual confidence. And so, right now, what I'm doing is inviting experts to talk about sex, money, and the taboo. And my guest today is Shamaree. Shamaree. I'm saying that several times because she has such a beautiful, unique name. So, I'm going to say it multiple times, Shamaree. And so, I'm just waiting for her to join us. I'm going to send her the invite one more time. Let me know if you get the invite, Shamaree. Hope the tech stuff is working. So, in the meantime, I am just gonna play with some essential oils and wait for Shamaree to join us. It says that she's joining. Okay. Request to join. Shamaree, there we go. It's working. There we go.
Hello.
Hello, and thank you for being my second guest. I realized that there was like an error with Canva and it said episode 3, but
Mm.
it's actually episode 2. The first one was with Lupita, my first guest, and it was about if money was a lover. So today our focus is how to match our partner's libido.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so we have an incredible expert. So if you have mocktails, I don't know, cocktails, and you want to watch this, and then after watch an episode of Sex in the City, be my guest. I just started watching the new one called Just Like That. Have you heard it before?
No, I mean I've heard that they were coming out with another one, but I haven't seen
Yeah. I don't know if I can do spoilers, but it's
it. Yeah,
basically
don't do it.
Carrie and I don't want to ruin it, but just watch it. It's like the grown-up version of Sex in the City.
Hmm.
I actually started watching Sex in the City when I was an escort. And so I remember I was escorting, and every time I got a client, I went to Best Buy to just purchase the one of the DVDs. And now there's like no more DVDs.
Yeah.
So anyways, I know I'm getting off tangent here. But I want us to play. I want this to be fun and playful. Like we're at a casual event and there's art and there's like sexy people.
Right.
So today we're just having an expert who's going to teach you how to match your libido. So before that, can you just introduce yourself to the audience for those that do not know you on this platform?
Of course, of course. So I'm Shamaree, and I'm a marriage and family therapist turned intimacy coach and relationship expert. And I specialize in empowering women to be fully uninhibited and fulfilled in their intimate and sexual relationships.
Awesome. I have this funny question, but it's coming up a lot because some of the clients that I have are very new to coaching, to these big words like empowerment, authenticity, libido. So if you were going to share this to kids, how would you share what you do to a kid? Because there might be kids in the
Right,
audience. There might be people that have a brain of a 12-year-old. So how would you
right.
share what you do to um, a kid?
Right, right. Yeah, because we don't know things until we learn them, until we're exposed to them. So if this is something that you haven't really thought about at all, you might not be familiar with some of the wording or the way that we explain things. So generally speaking, what I would say that I do is I help women women who might struggle in relationships. Maybe they have a difficult time feeling close to someone, allowing someone to get close to them. Maybe they have issues with physical touch. Maybe they have issues with getting sexual or feeling sexual. So if any of those things are things that you have struggled with, those are all things that I tend to touch on. Also like body confidence and sexual confidence. So really just feeling confident in your womanhood and being who you are and being able to accept pleasure, being able to accept someone showing you affection and things like that.
That is amazing what you do. And I'm more curious about why did you choose this as your industry? I always get curious, like, why did you do it? Was it just like a computer that said, hey, check this box? And because the funny story is, I went to college to get a child and family development, and I literally had no idea what my purpose was. And it just said, I went on the computer and it says, yep, just do that.
Oh, yeah.
But later on, it turned out that I really had a passion for sexuality,
Hmm.
as well as content creation. But that's
Right.
a whole different topic. But yeah, I would love to hear what inspired you to focus on sexuality.
Yeah, I think that I've always been interested in like relationships and why people act the way that they act when they're together. I've always been very curious about sexual things. If I just kind of think about my history, just as an individual, I've always been curious and interested. But as I grew older, I had my own personal experiences. I'm a survivor of sexual assault. And so after that, I did have some difficulty with intimacy, with allowing people to be close to me, with trusting people, with feeling safe in my body, feeling connected to my body. And at the time, like I was training to be a therapist because I knew that's what I wanted to do. But I didn't realize how deeply it affected me. And if I was training to be a therapist, I became a therapist, and I still had trouble navigating this. I knew that there had to be other women who had trouble navigating too, that didn't even have the tools that I had as a therapist. So I wanted to be able to meet that need. So if you need someone that can help guide you on that journey to discovering your sexual self, feeling comfortable, feeling safe, and being okay with however that looks for you, then I wanted to be that because I needed that for so long and I couldn't find it. And especially a woman of color, like I couldn't find it near where I lived. And I felt like that was definitely something that was disappointing. And so I don't want people to give up because they can't find it. So that's pretty much the reason why.
I'm so glad that there's more women like you, women that look like us, because there's not that many women of
Mhm.
color or Latina women that, if you go actually search on the hashtags or sex coach, I know this is going to be taboo and very uncomfortable for some of you to hear, but most of them are white women. No
Mhm.
offense. I love my white women. I have some white friends.
Right.
There's actually if you go to Sex in the City, the just like that, there's actually a lot of talk about race on that
Mhm.
show, way more, and they actually do address race in this new show called Just Like That. But anyways,
Okay. Yeah.
I loved hearing the story, and I actually went to when I went to college, there was one class where they talk about sexuality,
Yeah.
and there was students outside of the class because it was like, oh my God, there's a class on sexuality. Is
Mhm.
this real?
Yeah, we
Like,
want it so bad, but there aren't really that many opportunities for us to get that information, and especially not in a formal way. We have to kind of go figure it out on our own. And so it's like an elective class, and it's only offered one time, and you gotta see if you can get in. If you can't get in, maybe you can sit in with like a friend or something, but like it's really difficult to find like real legitimate information because there's a lot of information, but is sometimes it's a lot of opinions and things, and it's hard to know what's real and what's not real, and
mm,
what things are, you're safe to try on your own, and what things you maybe need a little bit of guidance first. So I think that it's important that you mentioned that like everybody wants to take the class. We all want to know, like we're all interested. It's just whether or not we have the opportunity.
hmm Information, there's so much more information, but there's a lot more misinformation.
Yeah.
And this is why it's important to have experts who literally study this, they
Hmm.
practice this, and they're with their clients. So I am curious more to go deep into the topic of how to match your libido. Like, well, first of all, what does it mean for the libido? For the people who literally don't know what that word is, I want to
Yeah.
just keep it basic for those that are like, I don't know what libido. I'm not really good with accents.
Yeah, no, we can definitely do that. So libido is like your sexual appetite, your sex drive. Those terms, usually people use them interchangeably. So you might not hear libido, but you've heard sex drive. So like your motivation, your desire for sex, basically.
Mhm. And like, are there categories of sex drives? I know I've met asexual. People talk about being hyposexual. Um, there's all types of sexuality, but what are the categories you see in terms of sex drives? Like high sex drive, low sex drive.
Yeah, and I think it's very subjective. So I don't tend to use those terminologies because that means very different things to different people. So someone can come to me and say that they have like a really high sex drive, and for them, that means that they want to have sex 3 times a week. But for someone else, they would want to have sex 10 times a day, and that's high sex drive for them. So
10 times a day.
it's
Wow.
very, 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 very subjective. And so, in that manner, I typically like to say, first and foremost, whatever is normal for you, so whatever is the most common setting for you, it is normal. As long as you are happy, you're satisfied. If it's not a problem for you, it's not a problem for you. So if you never want to have sex, and there's some people who are asexual, they just don't have an interest, or they just don't, they choose not to participate, whatever that is, if that is normal for you and it feels comfortable, you feel happy, you feel satisfied, that is fine. But there are some people who are all in the middle. So like I said, some people, they want to have sex all day every day, and that's normal for them. But there's going to be a whole range in the middle. And so all of it is normal as long as it is not bothering you. The only times that people tend to come to therapy or coaching is when there's a problem. And
Hmm.
so don't think just because you don't want to have sex as often as someone else that that is a problem within itself, because it's not. It's only if it's distressing to you. And as a therapist coming from a therapist background, typically what we do is we think of it as if it's distressing and or if it interferes with activities of like your daily functioning. So if you're not able to go to work, if you're not able to eat, to bathe yourself, take care of your kids, maintain your relationships,
Wow.
if it's interfering with those sorts of things, then that's when we kind of look at, okay, maybe this might be a problem in your life. This is something you might want to address. But if it's not doing that and it's not distressing, it's not bothering you, then it's fine.
Is when you say problem where it affects their focus, work, showering, is that sex addiction? Because I know some people have a different opinion. Some
Mhm.
coaches I've met said they don't believe in sex addiction, they believe in sex compulsion.
Mm. Yeah, when I think about sex addiction, how I interpret it, it's most addiction is behavioral. So like compulsion. So like feeling like I have to do this, like this is something that I need to do. So I do think of it in that way. And it can be something that feels like it's out of our control. But behaviors can be changed. Obviously, some take a lot more work than others to change. But behavior, that's not a part of your personality. That's not a part of who you are as a person. That's just something that you do. So we can always work to change it. So if it is a problem where it is interfering with your life, it's stopping you from doing the things that you need to do as a human, and as adults, there's certain things that we do have to do. We have to feed ourselves. We have to, like, if you have bills, you have to take care of your bills, and things like that. So if it is interfering with those sorts of things, that's when we really want to take a deeper look at, look, okay, what's
Wow.
going on?
I'm curious, have you had a case study where someone's sex life or sex drive, their libido affected their actual life?
So not personally, I haven't worked with anyone personally, but obviously in school we learn about different case studies of real people who actually did exist, and there are people who do go through this, where they have that compulsion, they feel like they have to do it, and there's really no there's nothing otherwise. Like they can't just, they feel like they can't decide, okay, I'm going to hold off this time. They really feel like they have to do it, to release that tension and to feel satisfied, to feel like they've overcome, because a lot of it too, just like OCD and things like that, it's a lot of thoughts, and then compulsions that you do because of the thoughts. So it's a very similar type of thing, when people are very compulsive with or impulsive with their sexuality. It's because of thoughts that they may be having, and so there's a lot of that goes into it. I haven't witnessed anyone personally in my practice that has had that issue, but we've studied about it.
God, we can go deep here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I can imagine that their thoughts are very distracting. And as you were speaking, I like realized that some of my conversations with men say they have gone to escorts, they have gone to, they've had watched tons of hours on porn or chatterbait.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I asked them, like, why are you addicted? They said because they need the distraction to avoid their feelings. And it doesn't feel safe to feel their emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they said that, uh, they just choose not to, they said it's easier to do
Mm-hmm.
that. Um, but I know the ones that have been on the other side, I just spoke with one of them a few weeks ago, and he told me that once he just realized that his journey was to change his spirituality with sex, um, he found the love of his life. He realized that it was a lot of mommy issues.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of like mommy issues. And sometimes it goes back to childhood. It
Mm-hmm.
goes back, some of our, addictions go back to the womb.
Right, right. No, absolutely. I think that a lot of times we develop these things over time because it serves a certain purpose for us. So a lot of people, if they are like addicted to porn, or they find themselves doing that like as a soothing mechanism, a coping mechanism, it helps them with stress. It helps them to not think about their life and the status of their life, whatever it is. Everything works until it doesn't. So most of the time for people, it's something that works, and as long as it's working, there's no need. Like I said, people don't come to therapy or to coaching because their life is great. There's no need, right? There's nothing that
Yeah.
they would need to work on. It every day would be like, oh, everything's great, and then that would be the end of the call. There would be really not much for us to work on. And so people tend to come to us because it's no longer working. So like now, like I said, maybe it's interfering with work. So now I'm logging onto porn on my work computer or something like that. So then it starts to interfere with the other things. So now it's not just a coping mechanism. Now it's not just helping me with stress. Now it's actually hurting me in some way.
Yeah. And if you are hiding it from your partner, I mean, sex
Mm-hmm.
and money are so linked. It's what causes divorces and breakups. So yeah, now let's get into the solution of how to match the libido. So,
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, with libido, there's tons of things that impact it. So, I kind of mentioned, like, everyone is different. Every body is different. I say that all the time. Like, literally, every body is different. So, you can't have this expectation that you're going to have the same libido as any other person on this planet. But there are some things that we can note that impact our libido. So, our mental health or stress. If we're under great stress, it's really hard to feel sexy. It's really hard to want to be intimate with someone if we're just super overwhelmed. Also, our hormones, and especially women, our hormones change so much just within a month period. Our hormones are all over the place. But then there's also medication and medical concerns. So a lot of medications, even if you think it has nothing to do with sex at all, it has nothing to do with your sex organs at all, most of them do have some impact. And doctors don't usually tell you about that because it's not usually something that's high on the priority list. If you ask questions, then obviously a good doctor is going to give you an answer. So if you do ask, will this impact my sex drive? Will this impact my ability to self lubricate? Is it going to impact my erection? You can ask those questions. They've heard it all. I know we feel weird. It's like, oh, I don't want them to think about me having sex. They hear all types of things all the time. You asking them that question is nothing for them. They've heard it all before and more. So definitely always ask those questions, no matter what type of medication it is. If it's a supplement, make sure you're asking questions to see if it's something that can impact libido. And then the last thing is relationship issues. So most sex problems are not sex problems. So
Ooh, quote
there's a
that. We need
small
to quote you.
percentage. Yeah, most sex problems are not
No.
actually sex problems. They're relationship problems. So you come to counseling, maybe it manifests in your sex life. So maybe you guys stopped having sex, but that's because you've been asking them to do the dishes every night and they never do. So now you stopped having sex as a response to that, feeling like you're not being listened to, feeling like they don't respect you. That has nothing to do with sex, really. Like maybe the mechanics of your sex is fine, but as a reaction to the relationship, now it's impacting the sex. So most of the time when people actually come for help with their sex, it has nothing to do with the sex. There's a small percentage though, like maybe people are not really familiar with anatomy, the different body parts and how they work. Maybe they're not able to sustain erections and things like that. So sometimes it is a sex problem, but most of the time it's just not. So a lot of the solution is not going to have to do with sex.
Yeah, the sex problems I hear is it hurts, like he's too big, um, or it could be like what is that? Bacteria infection.
Mm-hmm.
Or some women that are pregnant, they have a fear that it's too early to have sex. I mean, there's tons of problem. Vaginosis, it's
Mm-hmm.
like pain during sex.
Right.
For guy and of course STDs, STIs are also part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why it's important to always have a safe sex conversation when it's a new person.
Right.
Like before you get into bed, this is something I hear from all my friends. What is your STD results? What is your STI? Do you have other partners? Really ask the most important questions,
Right.
because if you end up getting it, because that is actually what happened with me. So I have HPV and my partner never told me.
Mm.
Um, and he just blamed it on me. He had so much shame. And then later, I started being the same way. I started also not wanting to say it. And that affected a lot of my trust until I
Mm-hmm.
started to get educated and I met a sex positive community. And I said, I really want to be educated.
Right. No, absolutely. I think it's very important to have those conversations. And I know in the real world, we don't always do it, but I think it's so important. And I always tell people, if you meet a new partner before you have sex, if you can get the status as far as STIs and really like see what those results are. And if you don't feel comfortable with saying like, hey, when was the last time you were tested? Maybe just suggesting, hey, let's go together. So at least you'll know that the last time that they got tested was on Monday when you guys went together. Like, for sure that was the last time.
Yeah.
And obviously you can't see their results unless they show you, but at least you know that they were there, they did it, and then you can ask to see them and you can just share them, so it's both of you sharing. It doesn't feel like, oh, you think I'm out here acting crazy, having sex with everyone raw or whatever. Like, it doesn't feel like an accusation. It doesn't feel like you're pointing a finger. Instead, it's like, hey, we both need to protect ourselves, so we both should be doing this. Let's go together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's so much to cover around matching the libido.
Mm-hmm.
One, communicating. Two, most sex problems are not sex problems. Three, I don't know what else is related to matching the libido. Um, Intimacy. Intimacy is into me, you see. It's also being vulnerable, which is
Mhm.
something I always, everyone's like, Erickaa, how are you vulnerable? How are you vulnerable? I'm like, I just stop caring what other people think.
Mhm.
Um, and I've been judged by being overly vulnerable. It's not about being emotional. It's
Right.
also about separating the story from the emotion.
Right, right. Yeah, I think vulnerability, intimacy is a very big part of it. Excuse me, because that kind of facilitates, like I said, sometimes the sex problem is not a sex problem. Sometimes it's just an intimacy problem. I don't feel close to you. I don't feel like we spend enough time together. And if we're able to address those things, even just outside of sexuality, outside of physicality, then that can usually it sparks that, okay, I feel sexually attracted to you. I feel like I want to experience deeper intimacy with you. I want to be more physical with you.
Yeah.
So
My mom
it's
was on this broadcast.
oh
she she still needs, she doesn't talk to sex, she still till this day does not talk about sex. So
well, she hears it, she sees it.
and she's all like loving it.
That's support right there. Appreciate
Yeah. Healing the mother wound right now.
it. I love that.
Yeah, so I'm just so looking forward to collaborating with you and bringing you back on to a future Sex in the City episode. I know we're going to hop on to my community, Sexual Sovereignty on Facebook. But before we conclude, and oh, this is just so yummy. Like, I want to do this again.
Yes.
Can you talk about your amazing sex guide? It's like 69 ways to, you have the,
Yeah. So, I mean, like we mentioned, you have to communicate in order to know if you're meeting your partner's needs, if there's something that's missing, or if there's something different that you would like to do. Because sometimes it's that too. Like, I don't crave sex because I don't like the sex that we're having. And so, it's important to have a conversation. A lot of times people will tell me, well, I don't know what to say. Like, how am I supposed to have that conversation? How do I start that conversation? I feel awkward. It's weird. I made it easy for you. I have a list of 69 sex questions that you can use to start the conversation. So blame me, said it was me. Shamaree told you to do it. Shamaree said that we should be having this conversation, and I just wanted to see what it would be like. So if you go ahead and hit the drop down, if you follow me in my Instagram bio, there's a link. If you scroll down to freebie, you can go ahead, put your email in, and you get instant access to the questions. And I recommend, even if you don't have a partner or anyone that you intend to be sexual with, it's very helpful to ask yourself those questions so that you even know what you want
oh,
or what you want to do in the first place. And then obviously from there you can share it with
yeah.
whoever, you know?
I was thinking if we do another live, could we go through some of these
Oh yeah.
and make it like a game?
Oh yeah, no, I think that we could. I told my husband was like, we should just ask these questions again because some of them we've done before, but over time, sometimes things change. So we think that we know our partners so well. It's like, oh, I've known him for 11 years. So I was like, oh well, we've known each other. We know each other very well, obviously, but things can change. I used to not like corn. I eat corn now. So, like things change over time. So
Yeah,
always
that
check
is a really
in,
good perspective.
ask the questions again. You
And
never
don't
know.
get comfortable with who they are now
Right.
because they evolve, they grow, they change, they have their wake up moments.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's important to like look at it maybe like cute quarterly, like every 3 months
Yeah.
or so.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And you can do it, do a few questions every so often. So it's 69 questions.
69
that you should,
questions.
I don't think you should sit down and ask every single question all at once, because I think it's more effective if you just have a conversation, sort of like this, like just have a conversation about it, say the question, and then add your perspective, and just converse, and then see where that goes. It might spark other questions that you didn't even think to ask.
Yeah. And what is there a time that you can have that conversation or there's never a perfect time?
I think that ideally, in an ideal world, I always say neutral time and space, as neutral as you can get it. We're humans, we have emotions, we have feelings, we do things throughout our day, so we're not gonna feel neutral. We're just not gonna feel neutral. But you don't want to be stressed out. You don't want it to be right before, during, or after you're having sex because emotions are high, and it's just not effective, especially if you're giving constructive criticism or something like that. It can feel very much like an attack or like you're pointing a finger in those instances. So, as much as you can, neutral time and neutral space. So, don't do it in a highly stressful time, like a location. So if you have a bunch of roommates, maybe don't do it in the living room where everyone is. So just kind of taking those things into account
Yeah.
as much as you can, anyway.
Read the room.
Right, right. Yeah. And if you know that they're super stressed after work, don't say, okay, now we're going to do it. Sit down. Now is the time. Allow them time to decompress. Maybe pick a different time. Let's
Or
give
when
them.
you're getting sexy and you're maybe like cuddling and watching a good
Yeah.
sexy show.
Yeah, like if you guys are in a good mood, maybe you had a really great day, those are perfect times because you already are fostering the intimacy, and then having the conversation can only add to that instead of stressing someone out more.
Yeah, this is perfect. Well, thank you so much, Shamaree.
Hmm.
And I look forward to hopping on in my community. If you are interested and you are watching this, just send me a message and I will add you to this like exclusive community because I'm not one of those like I'm just going to invite everyone in. I'm very intentional with who I invite.
Hmm.
So thank you again, and I will look forward to seeing you in the Facebook.
Yes,
And
thank you so much.
and thank you everyone for watching episode 2 of Sex in the City. If you are an expert and you want to talk about the taboo, money, and sex, please reach out and please reach out to Shamaree about the 69 questions
Yeah.
and she will hook you up.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right. Bye bye, everyone.